HCI-COLLAB, red colaborativa para soportar los procesos de enseñanza-aprendizaje en el área de interacción humano-computador a nivel iberoamericano. Un año de webinars en interacción humano-computador. Bienvenidos a esta sección de webinars, año 2021. Hoy nos acompaña Anas Abulfaraj and Dr. Adam Steele desde DePaul University, Chicago, con el tema Facilitating Heuristic Evaluation for Novice Evaluators.
Vamos a dar inicio a la segundo webinar y vamos a cambiar un poco, vamos a hacer un cambio en el idioma, vamos al inglés, porque nuestro siguiente conferencista, si bien para el próximo año nos ha prometido de que ya va a manejar el español, este año va a presentar en inglés. Now we are going to present our next speaker, is Anas Abulfaraj. Anas is a professor of King Abdulaziz University. Also, he is working with Professor Adam Steele at DePaul University. Thank you, Anas and Professor Adam, for your participation in this event. It's very important for us to share the experience of that important work that you have been done in aspects related with usability. So we hope that after this presentation, we could have a good cooperation opportunities between different universities of this human-computer interaction network that we have in Latin America. Anas, the same as Gabriel Mauricio, you will have at most 20-25 minutes. After that, I'm going to send you the questions that people in Facebook Live is going to put. So thank you so much, Anas, for your presentation, and the time is yours.
Thank you. As you said, I mean, I'm going to present in English, but I mean, as I told you, next year, hopefully I'll be able to present in Spanish. But today, excuse me, I'm going to present in English. First of all, I just want to thank Dr. Cesar for giving me the opportunity to participate in this webinar that meant to promote HCI education. So I'm glad to be part of it. My name is Anas Abulfaraj. I'm a faculty member at King Abdulaziz University in Saudi Arabia. And currently I'm a PhD candidate at DePaul University in Chicago. I work under the supervision of Dr. Adam Steele, who's a professor at DePaul University as well. Today I'll be presenting the work that I'm doing for my PhD thesis, which is facilitating heuristic evaluation for novice evaluators. So when we talk about HCI, one of the first things that come to mind is usability. And that's because usability is one of the main objectives of the field, right? Namely, ensuring the usability of systems. So that's why one can find many methods that were created to evaluate usability. Mainly, we can divide usability evaluation methods into two categories. The first one is user-based methods, which involve users in the process of the evaluation. The second one is inspection-based method, which done by usability practitioners without the involvement of users or with minimal involvement. Today, we're going to be focusing on one of the inspection-based methods. In fact, one of the most used inspection-based methods, which is heuristic evaluation. And the idea of heuristic evaluation is quite simple. Basically, the evaluators will be given a list of usability heuristics or rules, and guided by these heuristics, they will go on and evaluate a given system to find the usability issues. So although, as I said, usability, heuristic evaluation is simple, yet it suffers from a major problem, which is expertise effect, meaning that the evaluator's level of experience impacts the results of the evaluation. So the evaluation done by novice evaluators tend to be of a low quality. And Jacob Nielsen, the one who introduced the method, noticed that from the beginning. So he stated that novices can only find about 50% of the problems in any given system, as opposed to about 80% for experts. But studies done later showed that the gap is even larger than what Nielsen expected, stating that novices can only find 23% of the problems. So this gap or discrepancy made some researchers question the reliability of the method. And they basically claimed that, the results is merely the product of the evaluator's experience rather than the method itself. So the question here is, why should we solve this problem? Why should we care about improving the performance of novice evaluators? And the answer is quite simple, because hiring novices to do the work is extremely common nowadays, and that's understandable, since hiring experts is a bit difficult and expensive and sometimes. And some of the novices who are hired don't even have formal HCI education, and they're given tasks that require them to do the role of the user, which is kind of difficult, which is obviously will lead to usability issues. And we know that usability issues are costly, not only in terms of economy, but also in terms of health and safety. So we should make these methods more accessible to novice evaluators to minimize the usability issues, to eventually minimize the risks and costs. So what is the goal here? Basically, the goal is to make heuristic evaluation more structured, more methodical. Therefore, we want to build a step-by-step protocol that can help novices perform heuristic evaluation from the moment they decide to do the evaluation until they submit the results. So that could help them along the way, along the journey. Before we talk about that, let us examine the literature concerning heuristic evaluation. When looking at the literature, one can observe four sort of trends or directions. The first trend is concerned with producing general usability guidelines. To name a few, Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics, Tognazzini's 19 usability principles, Schneiderman's 8 golden rules, and Mendel's 3 golden rules. And there are many others, but the main characteristics of all these are their general heuristics. In contrast to the first trend, the second trend focuses on producing domain-specific heuristics. Many researchers believe that the usability guidelines were very general and difficult to implement in certain domains. So they started to produce heuristics tailored to specific audiences, platforms, disciplines, and contexts. Examples like, list of heuristics to evaluate touchscreen mobile devices, or list of heuristics to evaluate the usability of social networks, or list of heuristics to evaluate the usability of sites that are used by certain cultures, and there are so many others. The third trend is concerned with enhancing certain elements of heuristic evaluation process. Examples like finding specific ways to enhance the evaluation itself, or finding ways to enhance the reporting, and so on. The fourth direction is concerned with novices, which is the area that I'm interested in. Examples for that trend includes providing novices with tips on how to apply certain heuristics, or coming up with new ways to do it, like collaborative heuristic evaluation, which is a general method that could be tailored to novices, where the evaluation is done by a group that includes novices and experts, and so on. So as you can see, the literature on heuristic evaluation indicates that some researchers are concerned with developing new heuristics, either general or domain specific, as shown in the first and the second directions. But heuristic evaluation is a process, right? And usability heuristics are only part of that process. So improving heuristic evaluation is also a concern as a method, as seen in the third and the fourth directions. But most of the papers approached a particular aspect of heuristic evaluation rather than the entire process. Although, these papers provided excellent insights, they did not address the overall issue. So to come up with the step-by-step protocol that we talked about, we initially planned to conduct at least 12 semi-structured interviews with usability experts. First, we had to define experts. And when we looked at the literature, it seems like there is no agreed upon definition for expert. So we followed other studies which defined, the usability expert as someone who has at least 4 years of experience in the field. We ended up interviewing 15 usability experts. Those experts come from both academia and industry. We interviewed 7 experts from the academia and 8 from the industry. And we basically asked them to describe their overall experience with heuristic evaluation, things like the difficulties they face and how they overcame them, the detailed process of how to conduct heuristic evaluation, how they document usability problems, how they map usability problems to the heuristics, how they estimate the severity of the usability problems. And after that, we used thematic analysis to analyze these responses that we got from the participants to create the step-by-step protocol that we talked about. So here we're going to talk about the results. First, we will talk about the problems and the solutions and suggestions, and then we will talk about the coherent version or the step-by-step protocol, which is based on them. Before performing heuristic evaluation, the evaluator should have some knowledge about human abilities and the way people interact with technology. Considering usability heuristics to be standalone guidelines without understanding why we apply them could lead to incorrect judgments. The reason for performing heuristic evaluation is to help users accomplish their goals in the easiest way possible. So 2 main aspects should be understood before performing heuristic evaluation. First, how humans go about accomplishing their goals. And second, what are the usability components and how will they help? Consequently, the evaluator should understand these 2 aspects before undertaking heuristic evaluation. Norman created a famous model called the 7 stages of action, which explained how humans perform tasks. As for usability, usability is kind of general term that has many definitions, but Nielsen provided a good definition in which he explained its components. So after reading and understanding Norman's 7 stages of action and Nielsen's definition of usability, the evaluator would have a better understanding of why they're performing heuristic evaluation. Also, the set of heuristics should be mapped to the 7 stages of action, as well as the usability component. So the evaluator should understand how each of these usability heuristics helps in the process of accomplishing the goal and in which steps of the process it plays a role. The same applies to usability component. In what components of usability will each heuristic help? There is also a problem with the way that usability heuristics are usually presented. Simply providing a label with 2 lines of descriptions and an example is not a good way to explain heuristics. There should be more information about each heuristic, things like giving examples that are not limited to the interface, or giving 3 to 5 examples that highlight different issues that these heuristics address. Or providing good and bad examples, explaining the different components of the heuristics, explaining different aspects that each heuristic addresses, explaining the significance of each heuristics, explaining the applicability of each heuristics, because usability heuristics shouldn't be blindly followed, right? In some cases, in fact, you don't want to follow them, right? And so on. And also deciding how to inspect the system is another issue. And there is more than one way to do so. The system could be inspected page by page, by certain tasks, by certain aspects, etc. To choose how to perform the inspection, evaluators should first know the main services or purposes of the system. On that basis, they can, develop a set of goals, rather than just tasks, and then the system can be inspected according to these goals. The timing of the inspection session is yet another problem. Some evaluators inspect the entire system in one session, which may take up to 2 hours or more in larger systems. This might affect the evaluator's mental stamina, especially if they're novices, and cause them to lose their focus and concentration. To overcome this issue, the inspection session should be broken down into smaller sessions with a suggested duration of 30 to 45 minutes. Usually evaluators are fully alert when performing the inspection, but being very focused and alert might cause some problems. Evaluators might miss certain usability issues because their performance while alert is likely to be superior. Also, they could become overly critical because of their strong focus, and in both cases they might report incorrect results. So to address this issue, the evaluation should be performed twice, so that the evaluators approach each session in a different mood, basically. First, when they're tired or sleepy or not very focused, just to resemble the situation in which real users are going to use the system. And second, when they're fully focused and more critical, just to make sure that they didn't miss anything. Novice evaluators tend to think of usability heuristics as a checklist rather than an inspiration. So they become very focused on the heuristics and pay less attention to the system itself. This approach, hinders their ability to fully experience the system and might, lead them to detect false positive problems. On the other hand, once they find a usability issue that is related to a certain heuristics, they may rule out that heuristic altogether and move on to the next one, even though they may still find other issues that are related to the same heuristic. So evaluators should perform 2 separate sessions. The first session should be a free evaluation in which the evaluators examine the system as if they were real users and do not consider the heuristics while performing the inspection, just because we want them to focus more on the system and not be distracted by the heuristics. In the second session, though, the heuristics should be used to ensure that the evaluators cover everything and didn't miss any issues. Also, when we examine different systems and websites, we can see that designers make specific common mistakes that across systems. So providing a list of common mistakes to the evaluators and linking them to the heuristics could help the evaluators inspect the system. This could serve as a double check procedure in which after the evaluators finish the inspection, they could look at these mistakes and double check whether they exist in the system that is being evaluated. Also, assigning usability issues to a specific heuristic and accurately rating the severity of usability issues is a difficulty that novices face. To facilitate this process, the process of assigning usability issues to a specific heuristic, it's necessary to first examine the effect of the usability issues in light of the 7 stages of action and usability components. So when the stage of action affected by the usability issue is known, a number of heuristics are automatically eliminated. Also, when the usability components affected by the usability issue is known, other heuristics can be eliminated as well. So, and we can do the same thing to facilitate the rating process. Evaluators are encouraged to think of them in light of 7 stages of action and usability components. This approach will help in increasing the accuracy of the rating of the severity problems. So also increasing the understandability of novice evaluators' report is an issue. 2 main solutions are suggested. First, just to make the reader understand the problem better, explain the issue in light of 7 stages of action and how this issue hinders users in accomplishing their goals. And also in light of how the issues affect specific component of usability, which will affect the overall usability of the system. Second, research is needed to support such claims with empirical results, similar type of problems, articles, psychological principles, etc., just to let the reader knows that this is not just our opinion, it's actually grounded and to give some credibility to the report. So here is the high level overview of coherent heuristic evaluation, the step-by-step protocol that we talked about, which is created based on the experts' responses that we just described. It contains 3 stages. The first stage is understanding stage, and the second one is the inspecting stage, and the third one is the documenting stage. So here's the understanding stage. Starts by background knowledge, reading Norman's 7 stages of action to understand how people go about accomplishing their goals, then reading the definitions and explanations of the concept of usability. Then it moves to understanding usability heuristics, reading each heuristic, read the description, examples, different components, different aspects, significance and applicability, and finally mapping usability heuristics to background knowledge, and by reading how the heuristics are related to Norman's 7 stages of action to understand the role each one plays in facilitating the accomplishment of the user goals, and reading how the heuristics are related to the component of usability to understand the role each one plays in facilitating the usability of the system. Here's the second stage, which is the inspecting stage. starts by setting the requirements. So first, learn about what the system is, what it does, and who the target audience is. Second, define the goals that users would want to accomplish using the system, right? Then it moves to finding usability issues. Before inspecting the system, allocate 30 to 45 minutes for each session. If a session would take more than 45 minutes, it's better to be divided into smaller sessions. Inspect the system without referring to the usability heuristic. This is, as I said, going to be done twice, once when fully focused and alert, and once when tired or not very focused. Then inspect the system based on the heuristics. Finally, review the list of common problems associated with each heuristics, and then see whether the system you are evaluating has similar problems. This just, as I said, double check procedures just to cover the bases. Here is the documenting stage, the final stage. Start by estimating the usability issues. Assigning and rating the usability issues will be, as we talked about, be done in light of 7 stages of action. Then describing usability issues. This is going to be used the normal format for each usability issues. Write a description of the problem, take a screenshot of it, provide the recommendations on how to fix it. And finally, to demonstrate the significance of each usability issues, it's recommended that the description be supported by empirical results, articles, descriptions of similar problems when possible. Just as I said, to let the reader knows this is a grounded work. So this was the coherent version, but there are some points that we need to discuss about here. Heuristic evaluation is a discount usability method, meaning that it does not require many resources, or it's quick to apply usually. Admittedly, asking evaluators to read more about human ways of accomplishing goals and usability, and to perform the evaluation session multiple times, and ask them to put more effort into supporting the results in the report will take more time. But since novice evaluators tend to produce poor quality results, obviously the procedure needs improvement. So we think of coherent heuristic evaluation as a gateway to enhancing and mastering heuristic evaluation. It's expected that after performing coherent heuristic evaluation multiple times, evaluators will gain more experience in both the knowledge side and the technique side of how to perform heuristic evaluation. So the time and effort needed to conduct coherent heuristic evaluation will subside with time and experience. Also, coherent heuristic evaluation could be partially used as needed. So for example, if an evaluator feels that he or she already knows how to handle certain parts of an evaluation, then he or she can skip that part altogether. As I said at the beginning, this version is meant for novice evaluators, but experts can benefit from it as well. I mean, UX and HCI as a field is filled with many activities. So usability experts might stop performing heuristic evaluation for a while and then return to it. So, this coherent version could help just to, could help in refreshing their memory basically and give them back to track. In future work, we are planning to, pursue 3 directions. First, we will apply coherent heuristic evaluation to a specific set of heuristics, such as Nielsen's heuristics, for example. We're doing that right now. The second one, we will examine the applicability of coherent heuristic evaluation to a wide range of set of usability heuristics, both general heuristics and domain-specific heuristics. So basically, this version could be applied to any heuristics, and we want to see, and we want to apply that. We want to take multiple heuristics and apply this version to it, this step-by-step protocol to it. Finally, we want to validate coherent heuristic evaluation by comparing it to traditional heuristic evaluation to see the differences between them in both, quantitatively and qualitatively. So these mainly the 3 directions that we want to pursue in our future work. In this presentation, I tried to summarize my work, but I didn't cover everything, obviously. So if anyone needs extra information or wants more details, they can refer to my published work in this area, or they can ask me a question directly, and I'm happy to answer them. At the end, thank you for listening, and as I said, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna, for this interesting talk. And as you have mentioned, This is a very important aspect because I think that is important to notice that, as Professor Tony Granollers mentioned, it's impossible to run a heuristic evaluation in a short time. It's much harder than many people think, and because this is a complicated thing. Many people think that to make a usability testing is a easy task, and maybe they don't know that it requires a lot of time, requires a lot of resources, and the
Right.
most important thing is to have the enough people to make this evaluation in a good way.
Right.
In that way, I have two questions before to read some of the question of the
Sure.
audience. Is the first one is, do you think that these novice evaluators requires some specific skills? Because, for example, you need to have the skill to communicate in a good way.
Mm.
Otherwise, it would be impossible to evaluate a website, for example, in a good manner. This is the first one, and the second one is, according to the survey you did, is any difference between people of industry and academy about these aspects?
Yeah. Well, first of all, these are great questions. I mean, for the first one, you said, are they required to have certain skills? Well, yes. This is one of the things that when we talk to the experts, they said they don't usually have, they don't have the goals in mind, right? So when they go to the website, they go there, they take the heuristics, right? And they try to find problems in the website based on the heuristic. That's it. That's what they do. But when you evaluate a system, you have to have the bigger picture in mind, right? Because the idea of the result of the heuristic evaluation should be a website that could be used by the target audience. So sometimes, and this is why we included in the results, the applicability of the results, is that some of the heuristics are not applicable, right? So one of the heuristics, one of Nielsen's heuristics is consistency and standards, right? So he says basically you have to be consistent throughout the system. Sometimes things should be stand out. You want some points or some buttons or some aspects of the system to stand out, right? So in that case, you should be inconsistent in a sense, right? For novices, they will think of this as a problem. It's not a problem. It's you're doing that intentionally to get the user to deal with it in a correct manner. So they have to understand first. They have to. That's why we said they should read Norman's 7 stages of action and usability components to understand that these heuristics are just inspirations. These are guidelines, right? But they shouldn't be followed blindly. They should always be secondary after the goals of the system, basically, and how people are going to accomplish their goals in the system. So yeah, I think this is the main difference between an expert and a novice in this sense, is that an expert knows the system, understands the system, he can imagine how users gonna interact with the system, while novices usually they think of it mainly through the heuristics they have. So this is why we think we should. That's why we said it should be before reading the heuristics, they should understand 7 stages of action and usability components to solve this problem. This is for the first question. The second question, is there a difference between people from industry and experts? And the answer is yes. People in the universities or in academia, they teach these. So they have a deeper knowledge about this, right? Not all the time, but I would say they care about the nuances. As people in industry, they're more practical. They're more they care about the time, they care about the things that they do it, they make trade-offs more than trade-offs and compromises more than the academic. So in a sense, the people in academia, they're more ideal, they're idealistic. So yeah.
So based on that, you think that one of your suggestion or recommendation could be to imply not only people from academy but industry in the evaluation heuristics? Because
Yeah, this is one of the things that we want to do in the future. We want to test it in different settings with different people. We want to see the applicability of it, not only with one population, but with multiple populations, with people from academia, with people from the industry, from people who has some knowledge in HCI, with people who doesn't have knowledge in HCI, things like that. So yes.
So
okay,
part of it, I think.
Okay, Adam, sorry, Professor.
Oh, so I'm sorry. I think so. Part of I think the vision is that we want to democratize heuristic evaluation to make it so that people who are, for example, developers maybe, can become part of the effort to evaluate a system.
Okay, I agree with you. Okay. I have another question of Professor Jaime Muñoz. Professor Jaime Muñoz is a professor of Universidad Autónoma de Aguascalientes in Mexico. He first wants to congratulate for your interesting talk, and he has a question, and is, if usability experts are expensive, are there another reasons to facilitate heuristic evaluation for novice evaluators?
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said at the beginning, it's not only because they're expensive. They're not easy to find sometimes. And plus, there is no, really, when it comes to that, also there is no an agreed upon definition for experts, right? So in the companies, at least, I'm going to talk about, the countries that I've been to, there is something, there is a problem with defining experts in the field, right? So they would hire someone who has too experience in the field, and they will, call him an expert. Well, he might be an excellent person, but he still doesn't have this knowledge or experience. So the issue here comes is, the quality of the results in the companies depend on those people. And, this is, the main reason why we want to democratize this, as Dr. Adams said, is we want to improve the quality, right? And because they're hired, commonly, even in research papers. So if you go to research papers, they would see, they're testing mostly their usability heuristics. If they produced a new usability heuristic, they will hire novices to validate and to, do this evaluation, apply this, conduct this evaluation. So I think it's going to be beneficial both in terms of the industry and the academia, if we can, get them to apply heuristic evaluation better.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I agree with you, because I think that we have been mentioned this before. Yesterday we had a meeting with Anas and Professor Adam about this topic, and we observed that when we perform a usability testing, it's very complicated to find enough people to make this kind of evaluations. And for example, in Latin America, also, it's more complicated in many cases, because there is a lack of qualified personnel in this kind of aspect. So the option to have a novice testers could be important in order to have more data to analyze. And as Professor Adam mentioned, the idea is to democratize this concept, because in many cases there are people that think that only some certain kind of people with a specific knowledge could do a good usability testing, and could be an important element to have this mix with these novice people. So I think it's very interesting. Also, I have another question is, when you mention novice, what is the time of expertise? Because, for example, if I have a person who have been making some usability testing for 1 year, this kind of persons have been quoted as an expert or not, or as a novice or not. What is the difference between experts and novice people?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Well, in the field, there is, and this is not only in HCI, by the way, it's very difficult to define who's an expert. This is across different, if you go to psychology, for example, it's very difficult to define the expert because there is no criteria, basically, agreed upon criteria. The same thing applies to our field, unfortunately. The only paper that I've seen that discussed this in detail manner, it was a paper written by people, I think, in Spain. I forgot the names, I'm sorry about that, but they basically did a work where they tried to define who's an expert, but I think they did a great job, obviously, but their work was based on something called deliberate practice, which is a concept was, I think, popularized in the 90s, where the concept says that you have to practice something for 10 years to be considered an expert. I think that's a rather strict criteria, and plus it's being criticized in the field and for many reasons. So as I said, it's very difficult. What we noticed in the papers is that usually they consider someone an expert if they have 4 years of experience, and anyone who have less than 4 years of experience is considered to be a novice in a sense. It's not the line is kind of not very strict. I mean, you can't, if one has 3 years of experience, is he an expert or not? This is where it becomes kind of complicated, but I think this is a research effort in itself, and I think it's we should, as a community, HCI community, look to try to find more accurate definitions.
Okay, thank you so much. So finally, I would like to invite the people of the network of human-computer interaction, if want to use your protocol, contact you and Professor Adam Steele. For example, in our case, we are going to begin a experimental process using your model in order to have some insights about what are the perceptions of the users in the protocol. So I think it's a very good research work. And thank you so much, Anas, for your interesting talk. Thank you, Professor Adam Steele, for your participation on this HCI network. And I would like to invite all the people that can see and observe all the presentations. I'm going to shift to Spanish. Gracias a todos por la oportunidad, por haber compartido. Gracias a Anas, gracias a Gabriel Mauricio, a profesor Adam Steele por haber compartido esta interesante charla, y los invitamos a que, si están interesados en conocer un poco más y utilizar el protocolo de Anas y el profesor Adam, pues los puedan contactar. Recuerden que las charlas van a quedar en nuestro website. Adicionalmente, los videos se guardan en el canal de YouTube, que ustedes pueden seguir sin ningún problema. Muchas gracias por todos, a todos y a todas por su presencia, y los invitamos para el próximo mes en los webinars del mes de marzo. Thank you so much for these interesting talks, and we hope to see you in the next webinars at the end of March. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Listo, terminamos.
Could be possible, Anna, Professor Adam, and Gabriel Mauricio, to turn off your cameras in order to have a picture for the... Okay. Only...
Turn on or turn off?
Turn on. Okay. No. Yeah. No. Turn off. No. Oh, Witsi, Professor Anas and Adam, Professor Adam. I would like to introduce Professor Huitzilopochtli Luna Garcia. Professor Huitzilopochtli Luna Garcia is professor of Universidad Autónoma de Zacatecas in Mexico. He's one of the organizers of this interesting network. Professor Huitzi, it's a pleasure to be with you here, and it will be a good opportunity to work with Anas and Adam. Huitzilopochtli is working on design of infotainment interfaces for cars. He's an expert of this topic, so it could be a good opportunity to work on this aspect, which, I don't know if you want to say something.
Thank you very much for the introduce, Cesar. I just want to say thanks for sharing your knowledge with our network. I saw your presentation. It was very interesting to know that some people are working in different topics about how to implement the heuristic evaluation process. Same that Cesar, I want to apply your process, and in that case, I would like to that you share with us the complete process, the description of each phase, to try to apply this process in our research interest topic, and in is to develop infotainment system, user interfaces for infotainment systems. And actually, we are working in a framework to develop better points about how to evaluate these kind of interfaces. No, so I think that your process in this moment could be a great opportunity to implement in this topic. So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your research. Mauricio, muchas gracias también por tu presentación en la red. Esperamos pues usar todo el conocimiento que ustedes han compartido con nuestros grupos de trabajo.
Un año de webinars en interacción humano-computador.